I had a girl lose 230 pounds in 9 months in the carnivore diet. I got three other guys who lost between 30 and 50 pounds. I had a lady on the ketogenic diet resolve her depression that she'd had for 20 years. I've got another lady who's completely off her diabetic medications on the ketogenic diet. I had a lady, her memory came back. She had dementia, and we tested her when she came in. And 7 months later, she moved out of our facility. Her memory's back to normal. She came to us living off ice cream, and now she texts me from her home in Washington and shows me the latest ketogenic recipes she's making.
Today, we have Hal Cranmer with us. I'm very excited for this conversation. Hal is the owner of multiple assisted living facilities with a unique approach to diet. Hal, for those of us that are not familiar with you, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Adam. And thanks for having me on this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes, like you said, I own four assisted living homes, and I actually help sort of consult on a fifth one that I used to own. But it's sold to a wonderful nurse, and I still help her out because a lot of the caregivers are like my family. So we work with five assisted living homes. They're licensed for 10 beds each. So we have a total of 50 people we work with. I'm not happy with what I see in a lot of other assisted living facilities and sort of across the country. And so I decided to do something about it. So we changed up diets. After lots of experimentation and looking at lots of different ones and going through phases of other ones, we kind of landed on the ketogenic and carnivore diets. And we're seeing some really good results from using those along with some other therapies that we're trying to help these residents that are just pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals have a place, and we have lots of doctors working with lots of our residents, and they still get medications, but we try to improve it through diet and lifestyle changes as well.
Okay. So that seems the opposite of what you hear in terms of assisted living facilities. My wife actually works in one of these facilities, and the diet is definitely not a concern. It seems like with most of these types of places. So it's interesting that you're taking the approach of essentially food is medicine.
Yeah, I think it was Hippocrates who said that, right? So the idea's been around for a little while, and I'm
Absolutely.
I'm surprised they don't. And it's not just assisted living facilities. Go into a hospital and see what they serve for food. Go into a rehab center. Go, you know, talk to your doctor. Just go to a doctor and have a visit. I bet a lot of those doctors never even mention food. They just mention tests and medications.
Absolutely. So it kind of seems a little strange that you would settle on the carnivore diet or ketogenic type of diet. That seems to fly in the face of general nutrition guidelines that most people receive. So how did you first learn about the carnivore diet?
I'm a big fan of exercise and working out. And um, I heard a podcast with a guy named Dr. John Jaquish. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he invented this system called the X3. It's sort of a resistance training, but it's with bands instead of weights.
Okay.
And he applied his PhD in biomechanics to what's the most efficient way to grow muscle. And weightlifting is not it. In fact, he wrote a book called Weightlifting is a Waste of Time, which kind of piqued my interest because I've been weightlifting for a long time. Um, the subtitle is, and so is cardio. So I was intrigued. I read the book. It's kind of a brochure for his system, which I hardly recommend. I've been doing it for 2 to 3 years, and I've gained more muscle in those 2 to 3 years than I did 20 years of weightlifting.
Wow.
Um, but in addition to the weightlifting system, he, um, he said, well, if you really want to do this right, you need to be on a carnivore diet. So I started going down the rabbit hole with him because I'm like, this guy's blowing everything I've ever known out of the water. Um, but I joined his Facebook group, and I saw all these people with dramatic transformations of losing a ton of weight, building a ton of muscle. I mean, 70 80-year-old people that just look like they're 50 or, or who have fantastic, I mean, they're not Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, but for 80 years old, man, I hope I look like that when I'm 80. So I thought there's something to this. I ordered it. I love it. It only takes like half an hour, 45 minutes a day. And I started doing the carnivore diet to try it and saw some great results. So I thought, well, if this works for me, let's see about these assisted living residents too. I don't, I don't use the X3 with a lot of them that much, but I thought, well, this diet, the more I read about it, the more, and you could go on Twitter, you go on Facebook, any social media, you see a lot of people saying, oh yeah, I healed all my chronic diseases with the carnivore diet. I'm like, well, I got a lot of chronic diseases to heal here.
Yeah, right,
So,
I'll bet. Wow.
uh,
Okay.
yeah,
So you learned about it through the X3, exercise system.
yeah,
You had heard all these, sort of anecdotal testimonies, if you will, of how things have helped them, and you've seen, positive benefits in elderly people. So what
right.
was the motivation for transitioning your residents to a keto or carnivore diet?
Well, I bought my assisted living homes. They were already in business when I bought them in 2015 and 2016. And when I first got there, the caregivers kind of been trained by the previous owner to, as any good business is, to cut costs. And so, they bought the cheapest food they could find. And no one really complained about it. A lot of the cheapest food is, you know, the sweetest or the best tasting. And
Mhm.
uh, so the residents were fine eating ice cream every day and we're fine eating macaroni and cheese and, you know, sandwiches and things like that. And um, I just, I thought, you know, what if we just took out desserts and fed them salads more often and lean meats, the
Mhm.
basic what your mom tells you to eat.
Right.
And I started seeing people improve just on doing that. I got a few complaints, mom likes her ice cream. And so I didn't force it on anyone. I, I had a gentleman who came to me and a lot of people come into assisted living. Your wife can probably testify to this. Um, and they say, I don't want to be here. I want to live at home. I mean, I don't want to live in assisted living. My parents have told me, don't ever think of putting us in your assisted living. Not that
Mhm.
there's anything wrong with it. They just want to live at home. So gentleman said that to me. I'm like, well, what will you do to make that happen? He's like, whatever it takes. He was a pilot in the Berlin Airlift. So he was kind of a
Wow.
motivated, inspirational kind of guy. Um, So I said, well, we're going to feed you well, and I'm going to get a trainer in here and he's going to exercise you and we're going to try and get you home. And he worked really hard at it. He ate very well. I mean, well, relative what I knew back then, exercised daily when the trainer wasn't there. He was exercising everything. And after about 6 months, he walked out of our assisted living home, got in his car with his wife and went home. And we went over to his
Wow.
house and filmed a testimonial video. So, and he had just been out walking the dog when we got over there. So I thought, this is cool. And so I started looking around, let's start feeding them better. Um, and first I came upon the vegetarian world and everything's, great. I read what's the China study or whatever that book
Mhm.
is, that promotes a vegan lifestyle, the blue zones, all of those um, books that promote veganism. And so I hired some PhDs in nutrition who were big vegan fans and said, let's try this. And they made recipes that were really challenging in terms of logistics. Like they had ingredients that were only from special stores all over
Mhm.
town. And my caregivers didn't have the time to run over there. So I was trying to do it. And it was just, trying to run a business and doing all the shopping and everything was really tough. And, um, and then I started getting a lot of complaints from my residents and their families that I don't want to eat a salad for breakfast. Where are my eggs? Where's my bacon? All this kind of stuff. So And some of the residents were losing some weight, but I didn't see like a big transformation or anything.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I'm not getting much more results than I got just feeding them normal, healthy stuff. So I let the vegan nutritionist go and we just did the healthy stuff as I continued to research. Um, and I think I came from the ketogenic diet first. And so we tried that a bit and it started having some really good results. And then I went to the carnivore. The carnivore is a lot harder to sell to my assisted living residents.
Mhm.
They don't want to have just meat. So we kind of do a lot more of the ketogenic unless they ask for it. We have some residents who really need to lose a lot of weight, and we work with them on the carnivore diet. And we see some tremendous results there. And obviously their chronic conditions help too. But um, we have a protocol we work with to help people with their dementia and Alzheimer's. And the doctor who came up with the protocol originally is kind of a big fan of plant-based diets. But his protocol calls for a ketogenic diet. He just likes a whole lot more plants than animal products.
Right.
So we kind of incorporate all and, I start with the carnivore diet. If they say no, we go to the ketogenic diet. Uh, But we do have people on the carnivore diet and they're doing really, really well.
That's awesome. That's very interesting. So, are there any regulations around diet or anything like that in facilities like yours?
Uh, Not really.
Okay.
Let me, so that was one of the big motivating factors for me because we get inspected by the Department of Health at least once a year and they just
Mhm.
show up unannounced and say, guess what you're doing the next 4 or 5 hours?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm sure your wife will tell you about it. They do it in
Yeah.
every state, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I noticed that, they're extremely particular about medications, which totally understand they should be. They'll take the doctor's prescription and they'll look at the prescription on the bottle and then they'll look at what we have set out for them in their medications and they make sure nothing's expired and they make sure, there's all these steps and they one pill by one pill, making sure we're doing it right. Um, but when it came to diet, um, mostly it was, do you have a menu posted for the next week so that the residents know what they're eating? You know, never any, well, why are you feeding them that? So I
Interesting.
thought, okay, pharmaceuticals, I can't do anything. I'm not a medically trained person. That's between the doctor and the patient. I'll
Mhm.
follow whatever they say. But I will ask them, do they really need this to the doctor? Because the doctors are kind of God, if the doctor, I swear, could prescribe heroin, as long as we have a prescription for it and we're giving them the right amount of heroin, they're fine. I
Right.
mean, that's being a little facetious, but I get that impression. But on the food aspect, no one cares. Now, I take that back. There are some conditions, chronic kidney disease, things like that, that the doctor will specify a certain diet. And
Mhm.
if they prescribe a diet, we will follow that diet. I'll have a discussion with the doctor and say, are you sure about this? But
Right.
they will. And if the resident's on board with me, I'll tell the resident, why don't you call up the doctor and tell him to get rid of this prescription?
Mhm.
And he may say, that's not good for you, don't do it. But it's ultimately the resident's choice. But mostly they don't have a prescription. In fact, it's kind of interesting. The residents and their family, when they first come to us, will be totally fine if we fed them macaroni and cheese, you know, ice cream and sandwiches and things like that.
Right.
But when we suggest a ketogenic or carnivore diet, they're like, do you think we should talk to a doctor about that? Probably talk to the doctor about the diet you've been on.
Right.
So it's just something new and different. You know, there's a lot of myths about both diets. The ketogenic diet, I get people saying, well, you're supposed to have some carbs too.
Mhm.
We carbo loaded before athletic events. It's
Right.
got to be good for you. Or carnivore, all the cholesterol stuff. Or ketogenic. This is a diet for epilepsy. My mom doesn't have epilepsy. Those kind of
Mhm.
things. So you got to break down some myths and no, this is really good for a lot of people.
For
And
sure.
it helps that I can send them tons of testimonials of, you know, take their condition, find a testimonial of someone who had that condition, resolved it with diet. And it's pretty powerful persuasion.
That's awesome. So that's interesting that there's really no guidelines in terms of diet. You just basically kind of have to follow your own protocol and post it,
Yeah.
and that's really it.
I mean, if I put ice cream and M&Ms for every meal, I think the health department, even they would go, yeah, is this a joke?
Right.
Um, they, if you ask the health department, they say follow the FDA's food pyramid. But
Okay.
as a lot of us know, you really want to invert the FDA's food pyramid.
Right. Absolutely.
Um, so, that's the guideline they're going to use. But when I put our meals and a lot of our, especially the ketogenic side, a lot of our meals look like regular meals.
Hmm.
There's some great cooks out there that make fantastic recipe books that,
Hmm.
will make a lasagna as 4 grams of carbs per serving, but it says lasagna on the meal plan.
Right.
So, oh, they're feeding them lasagna, no problem.
Man,
Right.
that's awesome.
We don't post the number of grams of carbs or anything like that.
So it's pretty loose in terms of what you can actually do, that's a great thing.
It is. Yeah. Ask your wife about it. But I think the big facilities are more constrained by corporate contracts they have with food service providers
Right.
than the Department of Health restrictions.
That makes sense. So you said that that you have a little bit of a challenge, sort of bringing this information to residents or their families in terms of a ketogenic or carnivore diet, and anecdotal evidence, testimonials seems to help in that regard. So have you had any good or positive results that you can share internally in terms of this patient or this resident that we had this sort of a benefit and things like that?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I had a girl lose 230 pounds in 9 months in the ketogenic diet. Or no,
Wow.
I'm sorry, on the carnivore diet. I've got
Wow.
I got 3 other guys who lost between 30 and 50 pounds on it in just a couple months. One guy's walking out of his wheelchair. Um, I had a lady on the ketogenic diet resolve her depression that she'd had for 20 years. I've got another lady who's completely off her diabetic medications on the ketogenic diet. Let's see what else. I had a lady, her memory came back. Like she had dementia, and we tested her when she came in. And 7 months later, she moved out of our facility. Like her memory's back to normal. Now,
Wow.
we did a bunch of therapies besides the ketogenic diet, but
Mm.
she came to us living off ice cream. And now she texts me from her home in Washington and shows me the latest ketogenic recipes she's making.
That's
Uh,
incredible. So,
yeah,
so one of the reasons why I contacted you was based on one of the reviews on your website where a husband had left a review about his wife, and she said that he said that she's coming out of Alzheimer's.
yeah.
And I
So,
thought that was absolutely incredible. It seems almost impossible.
yeah, well, she's not out of Alzheimer's, but she is making progress. He said that we took her, in addition to the ketogenic diet and all that, we took her to some hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Okay.
And after that, she started recognizing all of us and talking and everything like that. So, yeah, he moved her back to Texas. He wanted to keep working on her and improve. But we made some improvements there. It, she was very deep into Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
So to go from, not recognizing anyone to all of a sudden recognizing us was a big leap. She's definitely not out of it, but um, it seems like she's going in the right direction. And even if we can, there's a bunch of people we don't that don't go home. I've only sent 7 or 8 people home in the last since 2016. But if I can improve their quality of life, that just seems like a huge. Plus, I've got people who came to us bedbound and they're up walking around with a walker.
Wow.
The other morning, I went early to one of my homes and the lady was out walking around the neighborhood.
Wow.
So, I had a guy, a 98-year-old gentleman, go on a cruise with his family for about 10 days. We let him borrow a caregiver. She kind of made sure he was okay, but, he never could have gone on a cruise like that unless we healed him up. And he actually passed away 6 months after he returned, but he
Mm.
died happy. He had a wonderful time on it. I mean, he made it to 98. You can't complain too much.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in that advanced of an age and you live that way for so long with your diet, I mean, it's gonna be hard to reverse everything.
Right. And we've had some people in hospice and stuff. We have a consulting company that helps us with people, especially in Alzheimer's. They've turned down people in our home. Like, I'm sorry, your mom's 95 and in hospice. We don't want to take your money because we're not going to be able to do anything
Wow.
or very little.
Wow.
So,
That's interesting.
but
So,
I'm hoping as we do more and more of this, we get people who come to us younger and younger that have a really good chance at 6 months every year of being with us to go back home and enjoy the rest of their lives with a new lifestyle. That lady who recovered from her dementia and is living on her own. She was only 70, so she's got plenty of life ahead of her.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so in terms of the lady that you said lost so much weight, is she younger or
She was 42.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's living independently.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, she worked really hard. She did exercising with the X3.
Mhm.
I hire for the very overweight people, I hire a personal trainer. His name's Daniel Magyar. Um, and he does amazing stuff. And he's a huge fan of the ketogenic diet. He's a huge fan of the X3. That's how I found him. But he incorporates fasting as well as diet, the carnivore diet, and gets some amazing results.
That's awesome. So you've seen, owning these facilities, you've seen things, eh, things that affect people's lives in terms of medications, diet, exercise, therapies, things like that. So where does diet fit into that in terms of the impact that you've seen?
I think diet's the biggest part of it. I think, first of all, if you can get someone on a specific diet where they're not cheating, where they're actually doing it, it sets you up for all the other therapies. The other therapies are easy compared to diet. You don't have cravings not to do red light therapy or get in the sauna or something. You know, you have parts of your body actively working against you in diet. If you can control that, you can exercise on a regular basis. You can go do these therapies. You don't mind taking a cold shower from time to time because I kind of think of it as building up sort of your moral stamina. I mean, it's not really morality, but I tell people that's how you should look at diet. If you see $10 on a table at a restaurant, part of you says, I could be $10 richer. And
Right.
part of you says, that's not the right thing to do. I'm going to turn it in and give it to someone.
Hmm.
So I tell people, look at diet that way. Oh, that Snickers bar would be real tasty right now. It's not the right thing to do, and try and make a moral judgment, even though it's not really a moral judgment, but it's, you know, taking care of yourself. So it's kind of seems like the same craving. So if you can overcome that, it kind of changes your whole mindset. And you're going to be like, okay, if I can do the diet, what else can and I think the diet has the biggest impact because that's the fuel in your body. That's you know, what keeps you alive. You can not do all the other therapies and probably live a really long time. You screw up the diet really bad, you're wrong for this world.
That's awesome. So would it be safe to say that the efficacy of the other treatments and therapies are heightened if you have a good diet as a basis?
Yeah, I think completely. I mean, I always hear the expression, you can't, what is it, outwork a bad diet. You can't out exercise a bad diet.
Right.
They don't say you can't out diet no exercise. Um,
Right.
so, you know, getting the diet right helps you lose weight, helps you clear up those chronic diseases, everything like that, which sets the stage for those other therapies having a synergistic effect and working even better. You know, someone just starting to get sick is going to have a lot more success resolving that issue than someone who's had that sickness for a long time and it's worn down their body.
Hmm.
Or someone who's 25 is going to have a lot better success with health than someone who's 85. So the more you can put your body in a good state, the more you're going to resist disease, the more you're going to recover from anything that you do get, the better you're going to feel, the more you're going to achieve, both physically and mentally. So, yeah, I think diet's every.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So I know you're kind of pressed for time, so I have a couple more questions for you, and then we can
Sure.
go about our days. So if someone has a loved one in a facility like yours currently, and they think that a keto or carnivore diet is something that could help their loved one improve their health, is there anything that they can do?
Bring the food into the facility. I don't know. Or move to a facility that's more open to it.
Okay.
You can talk. You can talk to facilities and they'll. I've had a variety of success doing it. There are facilities doing it and I'm sure they're having good success with it. And there are
Mhm.
others that aren't. I've talked to people in facilities that are like, how can I get this? And we even brought their doctor over and the doctor said, I don't want you doing a ketogenic diet. I don't want you doing a carnivore diet. Yeah. So it's
Wow.
not just the facility, it's the doctor.
Hmm.
Um, and then, the larger the facility, the more chances they have a corporate contract from headquarters and you're one person compared to thousands in that facility. And even in my facilities, there are people who are like, I don't want to do any of that. I enjoy what I eat. It's the highlight of my day because I'm old and can't do much else. Let me eat what I want. If it kills me, so be it. Okay. So it's not like you can just make it a blanket thing and say, everyone, we're just going to do this from now on. So we'll still serve them the basic stuff. And that's why the ketogenic diet is more popular because I can make lasagna and they think they're eating lasagna when they're eating ketogenic lasagna. But we'll serve them ice cream for dinner because they absolutely want ice cream. But there's stuff you can look out for, like a lot of facilities, people, elderly people may have trouble swallowing, so they give them applesauce. They crush the medication, put it in applesauce, and give it. Well, if you look at applesauce, a lot of applesauce has more sugar than candy bars.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you're canceling the medication out if it's doing any good. So we, find ketogenic meal replacement kind of stuff. There's a Dr. Ben Bick makes a great one that's
Hmm.
vanilla or chocolate macadamia nut. And they eat it right up. And it's got 4 grams of carbs. It's got a whole lot of protein and fat and no sugar. So look at not just what the meal is, but look at what they're doing with the medications. Look at the snacks they give them, things like that. And you can always tell them no. You don't want them to give that. And then either you substitute or, if, you know, let them fast a little. We generally serve dinner like 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Hmm.
They're done by 5, 5:30. And then we don't serve them breakfast again until 8 the next morning. So they get a nice window where they're not eating. And we just tell them the kitchen's closed. Sorry.
Right.
And a new person coming in sometimes, oh, I really want something. But
Right.
after a couple weeks of doing it, they don't miss it, and they get a good 13, 14 hours without eating. So
That's awesome.
there's nothing wrong with that. And obviously, and I tell families if they're worried about it, like they're worried their mom's losing weight or something, I will say, well, when they're eating, we'll feed them more. It's not like we're withholding food. We're just feeding them in a certain time.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I have one guy who goes 18 hours without eating each day, and no problem. I had a lady on hospice came to us weighing 86 pounds, and she weighs 96. Like,
Wow.
she's gained weight on the ketogenic diet, even though
Okay.
she doesn't eat 14 hours a day.
That's
So,
that's awesome.
yeah, I tell people a ketogenic diet's just for weight loss. It's for health. And if you're underweight, eat it right, you're going to gain weight.
I love
So,
that. And you've had success stories from the entire spectrum, it seems. That's awesome.
yeah, it is. I mean, during COVID, I had one house that went like almost 2 years, a little over 2 years without losing any. A, great, we didn't lose anyone to COVID. B, if you talk to a lot of assisted living places, that's kind of rare
Mhm.
that people, you didn't lose a single person, because a lot of them come to us 6 months, 8 months, a year to live. So,
Mm.
people don't want to go to assisted living. So they wait until I can't take this anymore. I got mom out of my house. Or
Right.
mom falls and breaks her hip and they can't bring her home, and she's already in a weakened state. So to have them go, I mean, some come to us on hospice. So to have them go 2 years is pretty remarkable.
I love that.
Mhm.
So, last question. For anyone listening that has a facility like yours or is maybe thinking of starting a facility like yours, what steps could they take in order to implement this type of a dietary approach?
Well, I start with talking to the residents and families about it. If you own, let's take that in two. One, if you own one, and one, if you're starting.
Hmm.
If you own one, talk to the residents and families. If they're wholesale against it, you want to please your customers and it's just going to be really tough. And you definitely don't want to deceive. Um, the biggest, I tell my caregivers, I want families calling me and telling me to stop. Tell my caregivers to stop calling. You got to communicate. Everyone's worried about their mom or dad. They don't. And assisted living has a very bad reputation. When the families aren't here, the
Right.
neglect starts.
Hmm.
Um, so communicate with the family, make sure they're on board with it. Then mm, try some, try some recipes. There's a wonderful lady named Maria Emmerich on the internet. She can make keto Pop Tarts and keto donuts. Not that we do that, but
Right.
you try some of those.
Mm.
I also recommend hiring a cook. Don't have your caregivers do it because they're by the dinner time, they're pretty tired out fixing, dressing people, bathing people, all those
Mhm.
kind of things. So mm, it's very tempting to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or macaroni and cheese and rest. So have someone who just concentrates on cooking and who's into it too. One of our cooks lost 37 pounds because she started eating. There you go. Mm. So I'd say those are the big ones is get people buy-in and then get a cook that's enthusiastic about it and um, them separate from the caregivers. For someone starting out, I would try to advertise this is what you do. Make it very prominent. That's why I'm going out here and saying this is what I do. You're not going to fill your place up, at least initially, total health enthusiasts, but at
Right.
least you can move down that road. And I'm getting more and more people who want to get better, who want this kind of diet. And so realize it's a slow process and don't run out of money before you get everyone. Don't say, well, you don't want keto, don't come to my house. Accept them in, take care of them, do your best for them. But, ultimately it should be everyone's personal choice as to how they conduct their health.
I love that. Yeah, those are wise words, especially when you were talking about if you already own that business like that to get them to buy in. Yeah, because that probably would be a very bad business decision to just change things without letting anybody know.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to sneak liver into one of my residents' meals one time, and I had a like like strike, riot, whatever you wanna call it, in the assisted living facility. They were
Uh,
mad at me. So I learned no more sneaking.
that's funny. So for those that want to reach out and connect with you, where can they find you, Hal?
Sure. So I write an email newsletter 5 days a week or write an email. It's not real long, not real fancy, but just sort of what we're doing and what I'm discovering, not just
Mhm.
about ketogenic diets and stuff, but um, just therapies that help elderly people or ideas that might help you with your elderly mom and dad. Um,
Nice.
and that's it. Bring memory back.
Okay.
I have a download to help people with dementia and Alzheimer's, just cheap things you can do to help you with that and maybe avoid it. Mm. I'm on Twitter at Hal Cranmer. I'm on our Facebook page is a Paradise for Parents Assisted Living, and I'm on podcasts.
Wow.
uh,
You're
so
everywhere.
yeah, and if you go, I'm sorry, our website is a paradise for spelled FOR parents.com, sort of like the I don't know the little owner there, just spelled just like that, all one word. And
Awesome.
I have some videos on there of stuff we've done.
Very cool. That's awesome. I love the names that you have for these
I can't
newsletter
claim
and
credit. Someone else. I bought the business.
okay. Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. So, how it's really awesome to speak with you and learn more about your business. And I feel like we're kind of at the beginning of spreading this type of treatment, if you will. I mean, it really is. We're helping families with dietary approaches that seem like they're maybe a little bit out of the norm, but there's lots of evidence and success stories like yourself and your residents have had. And I really just appreciate everything that you're doing and the approaches that you're taking and the care that you're giving to these loved ones. And I really appreciate you. And I thank you for your time today, Hal.
Well, thank your wife, Adam. She's doing noble service too. And thank you for spreading the word. The more people to find out about this, the better we're all doing. So please keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.